So you don't get the information of who these people are. And this play is so similar to the dumbwaiter. What happens? What's the first thing that happens? What's the first thing you see on the stage?
The first thing my guy sees on the stage?
Yes.
The hopscotch?
And the hopscotch and taller.
And the girl.
Okay. Yeah. A woman with a baby carriage. Okay. He gets there, and what does he do? What's the first thing he does, Kelly?
He insults me.
No. He kisses you.
Oh.
And you say, that was pretty good.
Oh.
I'm not scared of you. That's all he says. That's all she says. And then he starts to ask, they start to poke around about marriage, you know, the other people's life, children. And then he looks over at the baby carriage, and there's no baby in the baby carriage. Okay? At that point, something happens that's very significant. He asks the child's name, and she says, Lorelei. And it upsets him greatly. What did you say? He said, Lorelei. My child's Lorelei. My name's Lorelei. My mother was Lorelei. And my grandmother was Lorelei. Okay. Now there's some, you got to put that in your memory. It's something that bugs him. And then at that point, Kelly, what does she start to do to him?
Mess with him. Try to turn him on.
In a big way. She starts to mess with him. And it's almost like she's talking in tongues. You don't know what the fuck she's saying. But she's talking about Indians and lost tribes. And she's talking about the Lone Ranger. And he got on his horse. And he rode off into the sunset. You say, what's that clue? She starts to mess with him. Not only does she mess with him, what did she do further than mess with him?
I don't know the answer.
She tortures him.
Oh, yes.
She starts to torture this guy. Okay? You don't know what she's talking about. She's sexually trying to turn him on. Okay, now we go to your guy's scene. What changes? Prior to this, he's like, blah, 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 you know what I mean? She's messing with him so much, and he doesn't, he's like on ice. But what does he do the first beat of your scene?
Changes it, starts messing with her.
He turns it around. He starts to mess with her. Okay, you're going to mess with me? I'm going to mess with you. Right? And he says, great, she says, I was almost Miss America. Oh, really? I was almost Miss America. I said, well, what was your specialty? Well, I twirl. Well, twirlers, you know, I personally always found twirlers a little bit stupid, you know. But I always liked the way they handled that aluminum stick. He starts to mess with her in a sexual way, right? Then she does something. It's like there's a beat, and it's like two fighters looking at each other. And it's, again, in Virginia Woolf, you have the same thing. They talk in tongues. You know what I mean? They don't talk in like how normal people speak. And you subtextually can imagine, ding, 15th round. And she goes, you're going to mess back at me? I'm going to destroy you. And she says, hey, you ever make any dirty phone calls? Dirty phone calls? Yeah, not that, I mean really dirty phone calls. Yeah, I guess it starts to unnerve him. And she says, I used to call the butcher. And he goes, what did you say? I used to call the butcher. And she goes in this whole elaborate thing about the butcher. Yeah, and then about how, yeah, and then I walked in the shop one day, and I halted top on, no bra underneath, and I had these panties on that were really holy because they'd been washed too much. And he's like backtracking. He can't jab enough, right, to save himself. And she keeps going on about the butcher, and what happens? what do you do?
Start becoming unnerved.
So what?
I don't know. Start becoming more unnerved.
You attack her. You physically can't. You emotionally and intellectually can't top her. She's done something that's gotten to you, and the only way you can dominate her is saying, you know, she's saying, Lorelai, she's okay. I'm Earl. I'll fucking show you, goddamn bitch. I'll show you. And it's almost a rape scene, right? Now, near the end of the play, she says, 14 years. 14 years. You left me pregnant. I was 16. Not even a note. And he says, then he says, Elsa. That's her real name. They've never said their real names. He said, Elsa. He said, I was a kid. I was 17. She says, what about when you were 18? What about when you're 19? What about when you're 25? What about when you were 30? 14. And you realize they were childhood sweethearts. He got her pregnant, and then he abandoned her. That's the key information. So, and then the author does not solve anything else. He leaves it to your own devices. And here's, I directed this play, and here's the device that I came up with. I said, okay, what are the big things? Lorelai upsets him. The butcher upsets him. Her sexuality upsets him. Okay. What I came up with is that they were the queen and king of the prom. This was his virginal Madonna, right? First love. First love's very powerful. You never get over it. You know, I had lunch with my first love a few weeks ago, and she's gotten way older. You know, said whatever she had here was past. But then in the middle of the thing, I looked over and said, "Oh my God, I know why I fell in love with this girl." There was something that the reason that's not just here, but it's in here that you're connected with a person. They're still connected in some ways. That's why her thing is the connection is turned. You love somebody that much, they've hurt you that much. What does that emotion become? And this is the key for the way you play this. It becomes, the underlying emotion becomes rage. This is a revenge story in which I'm going to nail you. In this one short afternoon, I'm going to show you the 14 years you put me through. So, how to do that? I came up with the subtext in the narrative. When she says, Lorelai, it upsets her. I gave myself the actor's secret, and I told both actors this. Lorelai was the name of your mother. Okay? And I said, the underlying narrative is that your mother was the town whore. Cheated on your father with everybody. And the butcher was the town stud, was also your uncle. And that was the guy that your mom wanted the most. And she's throwing all these secrets at you. And what she's also doing is, in front of your eyes, she's becoming your mother. See what I'm saying? She's becoming the thing that you hate. That's actable. That gives you all the motivation, and also like where her underlying emotion is rage. Your underlying emotion from that is guilt. You know, don't tell me I made you into this. And he has a thing about sexuality. He talks at one point and he says, "You're just a tramp, aren't you? Whoring around. I saw you. I saw you when I first came into town at the bus station. You look like some sort of retarded hooker, you know." If you choose that narrative and that subtext, that can feed all your emotional states and all your behavioral needs. Okay? Well, that's where you go with that. That's your starting point. Very much like if you know your narrative and subtext for that, that's your starting point. You start making decisions. Your narrative and subtext don't have to be mine, but they're pretty good. You know, so if you want to use them, you know, go for it. Okay?